It's the official Catchup podcast. I'm Ben, and we're back second week in a row. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had two in a row. Look, we've actually been pretty decent. The last this season, I would say, compared to last season. Obviously, it was a bit of a shambles. I think already we've had more episodes than last year and maybe the year before. So I don't know if it put together, but certainly. But no, I'm doing all right. I always say that anyway. I would be a bit weird if I came on here and said, "No, I'm doing terrible, mate. I didn't want to do this. Didn't want to be here."
Probably good, man, but it's one of those, isn't it?
I swear, it's probably similar to yourself, Ben, but I swear the black is not the only colour we wear.
It's funny,
like Johnny Cash.
It's funny you mentioned that. So today, for anyone who's watching or listening, it's Monday. We know we're recording on a Sunday. And I got up in the morning and I was like, right, probably going to do a podcast today. Picked the t-shirt out the wardrobe. If you watch us regularly on YouTube, you'll see I wear quite often like sports t-shirts. New Balance is a brand I like to wear quite a bit. That's not a plug for New Balance, but I purposely picked the t-shirt out, went to put it on, and then goes like, do you know what? I'm going to pick a different t-shirt because I wore that New Balance t-shirt last week in the podcast. So I went and got a blue t-shirt, and then we did the podcast on Sunday. So we're back, and I'm wearing a quarter zip because it's absolutely Baltic. It's about to freeze, I think, down my way. It's been snowing, so I've got the long sleeve quarter zip on. But yeah, we do have all our clothes, Chris and I.
I would, I always wear the same. One is mainly because this jacket is really comfy, and usually I'm out and about. Like obviously, we're recording, and I came in from work and stuff like that. So, but also the beanie just. Grow my hair in the winter, so I don't want anyone to see my hair until I get a haircut. So my hair will appear at some point, maybe during when it gets a bit warmer, I guess.
The observant ones amongst us will notice that Chris was wearing a different hat last week. If you're watching on YouTube,
oh, that's right, yeah.
Back to his normal normal beanie.
I couldn't find this one last week. So.
Chris was always a beanie guy. Moz was always a cap guy, a snapback guy, and I just never wore because I'm trying to cling on to the last bit of hair that I've got, this hairline of mine. So, but anyway, enough about our wardrobes and our appearances. Let's get on to the football. We'll start with just a quick mention for Scott Taylor-McKenzie. Chris, he's been in hospital. He's in. If you want to say a few words.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, we retweeted out the donation page, and I'll put the link down. On this episode or whatever as well. So, Scott Taylor-McKenzie. I know him pretty well from Kelty. Weird thing was that he messaged us a few weeks ago, mentioned something about Hutchie Vale and stuff, and we were sort of back and forth. Hope you're doing all right. So, it just shows you how quick life can change, and something like that happening to you it can happen to any of us. As far as I'm aware, I don't know too much of the details. I've not really looked into it, but obviously, I think it was some sort of accident, some choking accident maybe, and Scott's had to have life-saving surgery. He's been in a coma. Obviously, he's tweeted out that he's back out of it now. He's with his son and his family and stuff like that. So delighted to hear the good news about that, because obviously I think everyone was worried about Scott at that sort of present time. But it's a long road to recovery. But it just shows you the good of football. I know a lot of football gets a lot of stick sometimes about fans and whatever else, but I think it's a force for good sometimes when things like that happen, and everyone's got behind Scott. I think it's over. I read somewhere it was over 17 grand raised for his family, obviously, because Scott's not going to be. I think he was meant to start a new job, so obviously that never happened, and his missus is probably going to have to look after him in the Bairn as well. So. Yeah, fair play to everyone that donated to Scott. We wish him well. Long road to recovery. Don't expect to see him on the pitch for Hutchie Vale, for a wee bit. But Scotty's a good guy, and I think we're quite helpful with a lot of guys that we know. Sometimes guys we don't know, but Scott is generally a good guy, and it just goes to show that he's well regarded. When people are raised that amount of money for him. Over a weekend, pretty much, start of the week. So, wish Scotty all the best. Hopefully, we'll get a chat with him at some point, and hopefully, we'll get to see him back on the football pitch soon. But health is what matters, obviously, in these instances. But I was really overjoyed when I saw that picture of him with his son. I mean, it was really great to see, because I was I think everyone was a wee bit concerned, obviously, hearing the news.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo everything Chris said. We wish him well and all the best for the future. Moving on then, we'll cover off quickly the Lowland League. There's only a couple of games played in the Lowland League this weekend due to kind of South Challenge Cup action and things like that. So we'll start off on Saturday. Berwick 3, Edinburgh Uni 1. Another good result for Berwick. Should be beating a team like Edinburgh Uni given their form currently, but they've got a few wins now in the bounce for Berwick.
Yeah, they're on a roll. I mean, there's probably not much to add to what we said, last week in terms of hyping them up. Seems to be a weird thing with Berwick that after Christmas, the last couple of seasons, they've went on a bit of form. You kind of wish that it lasted, at the start of the season, as I mentioned. But yeah, I would expect them to be Edinburgh Uni, but there is a massive feel-good factor about Berwick Rangers at the moment. There's been a few changes in the behind the scenes at the club with the chairman and the directors, so it's looking all positive at Berwick, and we've always credited them for their behind the scene stuff and all their incentives and whatnot. So yeah, I'm happy that Berwick are doing well. On the flip side, obviously, I'm a wee bit concerned from Edinburgh Uni, but fair play to Berwick, fully deserved in terms of how they're going about. It's so strange. I don't know what it is, but certainly I remember the end of last season, it was similar with Berwick. They went on a bit of a run. I don't know if it's just a start of New Year feeling, new sort of stuff. I don't know. Seems to work, but a lot of the guys are playing really well. Edinburgh Uni, yeah, a bit concerned about them, but yeah, we've mentioned it many times. I think it will come down to that Dalbeatty game at East Peffermill.
Next one then, Cowdenbeath 0, Celtic B 3. Celtic B getting another win on the board. 4 wins in a spin now for them. They still got the game in hand over Rangers B. They look at a good side. We'll come on to, I think, Broomhill later on, but I watched some of the Broomhill documentary and saw Celtic B and they looked a great side. And haven't seen an awful lot of Celtic B, I would say, this season personally. I've seen more of probably Rangers B and the other teams, but that's a game they need to win if they want to win that league. And obviously there'll be a lot of talk about cold teams and B teams winning the leagues and stuff like that. But it's a good result. It's what they've got to do. They've just got to keep winning towards the end. Yeah,
convincing. We praised Cowdenbeath last week in terms of their defending and their goal difference and whatnot. So for Celtic B to put 3 past them, it's pretty decent. I think that's probably the most they've conceded in the league. So yeah, fair play to Celtic B. They have a team full of, I guess the term is wonder kids, if you will. So we'll probably get into Broomhill, as you mentioned, but there was a couple of things I disagreed with Si on Celtic B, but there are young guys, probably looking, a few of them, to be in that first team in a few years, so it's always going to be tough when you've got I think Cowdenbeath, in fairness, have probably one of the more younger squads compared to compared to some of the teams, so it would have been very tough, because a lot of the other teams probably have a wee bit more experience to deal with the younger players, or a wee bit more quality as well. So, yeah, convincing from Celtic B. I think they will still have an eye on trying to finish top, obviously. So, Cowdenbeath, it's a tough one for them to take, but probably expected for Celtic B to win that, to be fair.
In the final game, then, Rangers B2, Cumberland Colts 2. Yeah, I think a surprising result for me, this one. Cumberland Colts, I guess, a team that can turn up on the day. I think they're one of those ones that that they can pull a result out of the hat and just find a win every now and then. It seems they're in that pack, like Forrest talked about, in the middle. But these kind of games are the ones you play want to go and test yourself against good players. And Rangers B, for them, is probably this is major points dropped as far as I'm concerned. I think these games are the ones they have to win to make sure that they do win the league. And I think now the way the games are sitting, with them having played a game extra, Spartans and Celtic B both have the game in hand. It's going to be interesting how this league ends up.
Yeah, Cumberland Colts really are the party pooper sometimes. You've seen them, especially against East Kilbride, obviously that's more of a Lanarkshire derby or whatever. But yeah, they do love results against the perceived bigger teams, I would say. Ewan McPherson on the score sheet again. Talked a wee bit about Ewan last week. Cole McIntyre as well. We've not really spoken in a long time about Cole, and he's such a talented player that can play, pretty much anywhere in the defence and midfield. So good to see him on the goal, the score sheet. I think the probably one of the big talking points of that game was the fact that Leon King was in the Rangers B team, and I did question, whether he should have been. I mean, he's played 11 appearances for Rangers in the league. Obviously, a lot of people brought up the fact that he's played in Europe as well, and he's now back in the Lowland League playing. As far as we're aware, there were rules the first year anyway. If they had played 5 senior appearances, they shouldn't be playing for the B team. I think Hearts, from what I've read, Hearts loaned out a couple of guys because of these rules. So I think they will be a wee bit pissed off, I would imagine, the fact that if Rangers are getting away with it and they've had to loan out players. It's not good. I tried looking at the rules, and I may be mistaken, and maybe it's just been in a statement or something or whatever. I mean, it's not. I can't find anything in the actual league rules. I don't know if it's a gentleman agreement or they've been removed for this season because it doesn't really matter. Or that's what the hard line is. All the results don't matter; they get expunged.
So the results don't necessarily get expunged, though, do they? They still win the league. It just doesn't matter for the promotion relegation. That the results don't get wiped. The points don't get taken away.
They do.
How's that?
Well, this is the contention thing. So Rangers, Celtic, and Hearts, they just get wiped out of the league. But the results against, for example, Spartans might have lost to Rangers, but Tranent beat Rangers. So Tranent will still get the 3 points for beating Rangers, but Spartans won't. So essentially, the results do matter against teams that they've played, but they don't matter for the actual B teams. Which
they don't matter to Rangers B, but if Rangers B win the league, for example, or come top, they still win the Lowland League.
Yeah, I mean that's the way I would perceive it as well.
It's not as if they don't. It's not, because that's the whole point in playing in the division, so that they get to play a season and they're playing for a title and all that kind of stuff. So the results don't.
This is where confusion kind of sticks out, because I don't think a lot of people that are in the know don't seem to know. I mean, there was a thing with Celtic B as well, because I believe they played as many as 25 plus players, and there was meant to be a gentleman's agreement that they were only allowed to play so many players. And we're not the right people to ask these to answer these questions. It has to be the league. I don't know if I'm really unsure. I can probably forgive a few things because I just can't remember. It was so long ago. We obviously talked to George initially, then Thomas has taken over as chairman. But I don't know if these were actual rules or if they were just gentlemen agreements. So, I mean, yeah.
Either way, it's bad. I think we can agree on. I think the fact that if it's a rule that's been broken or been allowed to be bent by the league, not saying that is the case. That's just me surmising for a second. I'm not saying that the league have allowed anything to happen. If that's happened, then that's pretty bad on the league's part. But if there's been a gentleman's agreement between the clubs that the clubs have voted on based on that gentleman's agreement and not having written it down in rules, and then Rangers B or Celtic B have then went over the gentleman's agreement to play these guys, the likes of Leon King, who we all know is a top quality defender, and from the performances he's put in, Rangers fans might disagree, but I think from what he's putting, he's more than capable of playing in the SPFL pretty much. There's no doubt about it. He could be playing, if it's not Rangers, he could be playing for an Aberdeen, a Hibs, a Kilmarnock, Motherwell, whoever it is. He could be playing definitely Premier League football. There's no doubt about that. So the idea that he drops down to the B team to play a game, or what it's going to be, maybe he even plays more games, and it'll be interesting. But I guess, I mean, from that perspective, if they play Cumberland Hall, to scored 2 against what is seen as a Premier League quality defender, and obviously we've seen from the likes of Darvel where you can turn up on a day and have a good performance, but I think Cumberland Hall could take a lot from that, certainly.
Yeah, and Yeah, and no hate on Leon King. I said that during my post because it's not the players' fault, really. It's not even the club's fault, unless obviously they have bent a few rules or whatever. But there was a weird thing I noticed. Someone had mentioned that it might have been like, oh, it's the cut-off is maybe the start of the new year, so now it doesn't count because he's played 5. Yeah, I didn't understand that because then what does that mean? So if he's played the 5 games in 2023, then surely he can't start until say next season he's in the B team. He can't play until 2024. That made no sense.
All us haters will be loving this, Chris.
This is the issue with all these gentlemen agreements and rules. If they're not written down, they're not in the league rules. Then no one really has a leg to stand on, and it'll be like us kind of questioning. And then there's got to be guys in teams like Spartans and Tranent and all the sort of bigger teams like how is this happening? I've heard the complaints myself. Like this can't go on. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, Celtic B could play their best team against a top side, and we have seen it. We've mentioned it before.
Yeah,
they could play their top team against a top side, and then chuck on the kids for their middle of the rows sort of bottom sides, and it doesn't affect their results as such because obviously essentially they're not. Again, it's the whole idea of the results don't matter, but it does matter for Spartans and Tranent and whoever else because they they will take the wins, losses, and draws and points from those games. So it's very slippery slope, isn't it? Really,
that actually is the roundup for the Lowland League. I've looked at 3 games given the South Challenge Cup. Spartans are still sitting top. I was just looking at the form guide, Chris, just there before we come on, and Spartans have only lost once in 15 games.
Yep.
It's quite the record. So, and no losses in 10, sitting top of the table. They look good for it for me now. I think it'll come down to them, the Rangers B and Celtic B.
They've still got some tough games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Tranent, I think
Stirling Uni and Celtic B, I think, as well. So there is a few tough games still in there for them.
Stirling Uni, obviously, we'll touch on them in a bit more detail in a minute when we talk about the South Challenge Cup, but no way out of it. I think for me, they've got the games in hand, and I think the games in hand will be crucial. If you can catch up the pack that are at the top, then I think they'll fall away. But they've got to get those ones on the board when they play soon. So one we all like to talk about, Broomhill, open goal Broomhill, the latest documentary. Chris, you've watched it. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I've always praised them because it's a really good insight into this level, and I think they do the level justice in a certain respect. Obviously, it's tough because they came on such a high of the Scottish Cup, and then the leagues kind of went pear-shaped. Obviously, our losses to Tranent. Sai, obviously, the highlights there. I mean, I don't know if you saw the end. Sai's the next episode looks absolutely brutal for Sai, chucking clipboards and whatever else it was. But look, the Scottish Cup, it was a good run, and to be honest, I always like watching these documentaries because it's interesting from our point of view. Because I always think back of what we've said, and I can always see myself like. It's always weird that I see Sai and the players saying the same thing, especially when they played Celtic B. We were saying about the fitness levels and whatever else and how they were, So when you hear a player like Kirk Broadfoot talk about certain things like that, and we've kind of discussed it on the pod at the time. It's very surreal. So hopefully means that we know what we're talking about sometimes. I guess.
Stamping your receipts, Chris. Is that what you're
doing?
Pros say it's good. Stamping that receipt. We know what we're talking about.
I do disagree with Sai on a few things. I think he called out Rocco Vata as Celtic B's best player. I don't think he's in the top 3 for me. I like Rocco.
Who do you have then? Joey Dawson?
I think Joey Dawson's a better striker than Rocco Vata.
I would agree with that.
Mackenzie Kearse is definitely.
Oh yeah.
And I like Adam Brooks. I must admit, I think he's a good player.
But is he not like a ringer though?
Yeah, but Rocco Vata's still not Celtic B's best player. But
I agree. Joey Dawson again, also a ringer, and that's the thing, isn't it? I guess a bit like Leon King. These guys are ringers in the sense of they're playing way below their standard. I mean, both those players could be playing first division, Championship or League One, perhaps on loan or whatever. And who knows if they'll make the first team? They're obviously still young, so.
I can't remember. I can't remember if Joey Dawson might have been injured when they played Broomhill. Actually,
right, maybe it could be.
Because he was injured for a lot of the sort of first half of the season. But I liked I really appreciate Si's honesty, because when they played the Alba in the cup, he did say, "I know a lot more about Alba than this level," and obviously because he's played at the higher level with Peterhead and he's played with some of these guys, grown up with some of the players and whatnot. So I thought that was interesting, wee bit of knowledge there, because he's kind of admitting that what we've known all along, that what we worried about, that he doesn't really know the Lowland League as well as, kind of Sandy Clark level, I guess. But I'm sure he's learning. I'm sure Si's. I kind of nip at Si sometimes, especially over that Stirling 4-4-2 thing. I just couldn't get over that. But
you always love to bring that up, don't you? You love to bring that up.
I've never seen Stirling play a 4-4-2 in my life, but look, it's a really good documentary. I know a lot of people have issues with Si because he's very emotional, he's very angry at times, and the next episode looks absolutely.
Can't wait to see him wreck the place, man.
It looks tough, and they're going through a tough run. And I tell you what, it's kind of like these sort of behind the scenes, fly on the wall documentaries. I don't ever remember any of them being successful. Maybe Man City. Did Man City win the league that year? They done the Amazon thing, maybe. But, when it's Tottenham or Arsenal, it's just shit shows, isn't it? Usually.
I think the Arsenal one, though, as much as I hate Tottenham Arsenal, it was a good insight, and I think it helped. It does that thing where it maybe helps you kind of attach yourself to the players and the management and things like that. You see a different side to them, and that's what they're kind of intended to do. You look at the likes of Full Swing on Netflix. If you've watched that, the golf series on Netflix just now, and it's got the likes of Rory McIlroy, it's got Ian Poulter, Dustin Johnson, and you're seeing the different side, and people are starting to find people that they like because the people that they are. There's a guy, Joey Dalman, who is a kind of middle of the road golfer, I think probably at the top, around about top 50 sort of thing, and that's maybe what I'd like to see more of from Open Goal. You probably wonder where I was going with that golf thing there, but I'd like to see more of that, more about them as people and
they've done it a wee bit.
To a point, yeah. They've had bits here and there. I think they were out with Brock Watson one time out in his power washing business and things like that, and kind of little bits and pieces in people's houses. But I think more the kind of personality coming through. I think there's a lot made about maybe Slaney, for example, from the podcast, and his kind of, I guess, I'm going to call it nonsense, but he seems like in the documentaries and in the games, he does take it quite seriously, and I'd like to see more of that and see kind of a bit more into him and the difference, because he does add a bit of a character. He's a bit aloof on the podcast and things, but I'd like to see more of that kind of inside. Maybe hear more about the coaching staff and some of these folk, because I think that as well as it's all great documenting the results and the performances and things like that, and that's only enjoyable to a point. And I think that's my worry about the whole Open Goal thing, is that does it start to tail off a little bit? I don't know. I can't tell you the view numbers, for example, from episode 1 to episode 6 by any means, but I just worry that it just starts to tail off, and then where the Open Goal go from there with the whole project, if you like. I'm just not sure.
You know what worries me, actually? Si mentioned it about obviously having knowledge and knowing how players play. Sometimes I do feel this sort of thing probably isn't helpful to Broomhill, because if you're an opponent and you're seeing this guy's frustrated, or this guy gets a lot of red cards, this guy's maybe not got the mentality, or Si's talking about fitness levels, or you kind of if you're any other team and you kind of see this, and it's an inside look into potentially what Si was talking about. Certainly you can probably read players, although it's kind of done way before teams play, but yeah. you still wonder if that there is a danger of overexposing themselves Si in particular, I guess. I mean, he's the key guy. I'm sure there's a lot of laughs to be had on the likes of Si's part. But I actually agree with him. He made a point that a lot of these guys can be anything they want to be in football. There's a lot of decent young players at Broomhill, and some of the older guys as well. I've always rated likes of Gary Fraser. I mean, him playing at Broomhill was just mental to me. Matty McDonald. Yeah, I think Si's right. I think that the problem at this level is you could probably, you're mentioning obviously Brock Watson and Brock. If you're you go down to part time from high youth or whatever, and you've maybe not made it, you probably will be a bit disheartened, and it's probably a lot tougher to go from full time to part time than it would be from part time to full time. Again, because people are probably not looking at you thinking, oh, you're going to be championship, premiership material again. And I do agree with saying a lot of that. Like, players, you have to look after yourself. Some of these young guys that I've seen have went on and are playing in the SPFL. You can tell that they're keen to make it. And I think sometimes when you're 21, 22, 23-year-old, I think it's harder if you're an ambitious 17, 18, 19-year-old, you know what I mean? It's maybe started off with the lower leagues, or I guess it's maybe an age thing as well. So, yeah, it's always interesting watching open goal documentaries. I always enjoy them, to be honest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the last. Well, I imagine there'll be a couple more to go before the end of the season, so I'm sure we'll get another one plus another one more to kind of round off the season and maybe do it. Be interested to do it next year as well. But moving on, East Stirlingshire, Chris, all change in East Stirlingshire, new management committee, I think, have come in there.
Yes, well, it's sort of a director partnership, I guess, and it's something that Shire have probably needed for a wee while, because it was really guys like Andy Williamson that was keeping the club afloat, and obviously some loyal volunteers. Simon Dickerson and Fraser Cromer, I think, and apparently the Workhorse Group have an investment in the club. They are apparently main sponsors of English League Two side Colchester United. Look like they're obviously bringing in the experience of working with other football clubs to Shire. Simon Dickerson is the new chairman. One thing I did kind of laugh at, he made a message to make a difference tomorrow. We first have to act on today. I kind of laughed at that and was like, that's fucking birthday card pish, isn't it? Nothing against Simon, but yeah, quite exciting times at Shire. It's something, as I say, they've needed for a while, because we worried about how they're going to compete in future seasons financially if they can. This is a main sponsor. A lot of this stuff was kind of environmental. They want kind of Shire to go green, and they're planting trees in Scotland and all this sort of stuff. And then there was a lot of things that we've not seen before in Scottish football. A lot of that comments, for Shire fans, obviously, I think there's a Q&A on Friday night to meet the guys and obviously ask any questions. But I mean, I don't want to say too much about this, Ben, because I don't know, I have a full insight into these guys, and usually I would kind of know behind the scenes, but it sounds interesting to me. But we've seen things fail, i.e. Syngenta, so I'm always quite cautious as well before I get overly excited. But it looks bright from what's been said. But
one to watch, certainly one to watch.
Yeah.
Moving on then, we'll cover off the South Challenge Cup, involving teams from the Lowland League, the West of Scotland, the East of Scotland leagues.
South.
Sorry, and the South. My apologies.
There was one team in the South, I think.
No, there wasn't, because three of us play in the West of Scotland. So we'll keep that in, and then just make sure that I was correct there. Just for
I forgot. There. Sorry, I totally forgot.
So all right, we'll start with Calibrates 2, 3 Rovers 0, the team we just spoke about. 3 Rovers moving across to West of Scotland, 4th division. They see that as an opportunity to play, I think, more competitive football and climb the ladder, rather than kind of being in that kind of stale kind of South Scotland league. So Cali Braves, we know they're a good side and they're capable. They've managed to get past 3 Rovers there. Cool side, I think they won it already.
Yeah.
Bailey Hanlon, youngest manager in Scottish football, I think. winning the league. Is a shout out to Bailey for his success here. But I think they're still in the promotion hunt, but it's their first season, I think. So,
yeah, that did surprise me that they weren't, at least kind of near the top. No, I would expect Cali Braves to win that, and they have. I've not really kept up with Reeve, to be honest. I know they weren't
obviously.
Yeah, I know they weren't kind of near in the league, near the top of the league, but Kilsyth have had a kind of sideways, as you mentioned, but Kilsyth had a fantastic season, and Bailey, as you mentioned, is one of the youngest managers probably in the game at the moment. So, yeah, there's not really much to comment. Cali Braves are a really good team on their day. We always kind of praise them quite highly on this podcast. One of the things I used to always get on at them was about consistency, but they've been, the last few seasons, they've been really good. Maybe struggled against some of the bigger sides, but yeah, I would expect them to get past Reeve, and fair play they're in. They're more to be excited about, obviously, getting into the quarterfinal.
Next one then, they're all Bluebell 2, the Spartans 2, and the Spartans won on penalties to get through to the next round. I guess I'm not too sure what kind of team Spartans put out, Chris, but I would have assumed they'd have probably rested some players, certainly. Maybe not, could be totally wrong there, but obviously done well to take it to penalties, but Spartans getting there in the end and getting the win and getting in at the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it's always tough for. One thing I'll give credit to Dundonald, if you're any team coming to Moorside, it's going to be tough for you. And they gave Spartans a game, obviously, all the way to penalties. I think Spartans were playing a fairly decent lineup, but full credit to Dundonald. They can do that. They can do that. They just don't do it consistently, which is it was a bit of a shame because, I think they were one of my dark horses in the east of Scotland, and it's not really panned out this season. Stephen Husband, obviously, still, early days in the management game, coming up against someone like Dougie Samuel that's done it all, except win the South Challenge Cup with Spartans. It's the only thing he's not done. So this could be the season. Also, I guess we could mention the fact that he's never won promotion as well to League Two. So it could be two.
It's got a chance of the double. The grand slam of Lowland League football potentially.
But, yeah, that would be interesting if Dougie could achieve those, and that he's pretty much on the Tommy Sloan levels of done everything. Tommy Sloan, I think, was the only one that he never won was the South Challenge Cup, and it's just because Auchinleck Talbot weren't in it, and then they won it last year. So Tommy Sloan's
job done.
Yeah,
he hasn't been promoted.
You could argue that he's never had the chance to, though.
Next game then, Maryhill 0, Cullen Rangers 2. Obviously a game that I would have been at. It took me bloody ages to get there because there was roadworks in the west end of Glasgow and it was murder to get through Glasgow. But not a lot to talk about this game, to be honest. I'll tell you that. But we scored in the first minute. Don't create an awful lot of chances. The first half was awful to watch as a football fan or spectator. Not much to write home about in the slightest. We get a penalty in, I think it's inside 70 minutes, and that was the kind of knocked stuff in out of Maryhill because they came out and they played and they looked like a decent side. I think the majority of them are amateur, or come from amateur background, or kind of youth background, and they've got some nice tidy players. I think the boy Robbie Manley in midfield looked quite nice, tidy wee player. I like the boy Cammy Clark in defence. I'll let him off for giving me abuse and calling me fat, but apart from that, he looked decent at the back. Nice wee set up at Maryhill. It's an old school junior ground as well, and I know Craig who works there. He's a good guy and does a lot of good things and trying to build Maryhill back up because obviously we're a well-known junior team and they fell in harder times more recently, and they're building their way back up. But for us, it was all about getting the job done and getting in that next round of the into the quarterfinals. Yeah,
see, I don't get abuse, Ben, because I'm 6 foot tall and quite a big guy, so I never get any.
Okay, it was one of those ones, man. Like one of their players gave a foul to one of our players, and the boy had just moaned all game about fouls and called everything. If it was a foul, he'd always say it wasn't a foul, and the other way. And it was just like I just shouted something like, "Oh, you just guess all the time," because like you don't actually know if it was a foul or not. And he just, instead of focusing on the game, he went on a bit at me, and then eventually I said I made a comment about you're meant to be playing football, not talking to me or something like that, and he's like, "Oh, you're meant to be watching it," but and then called me fat, which is a water off ducks back to me. I mean, I don't mind banter, but the personal shouts are poor.
Terrible.
I don't mind having a laugh.
One thing that did catch my eye: Jack McCalman back for the Buffs.
Jack McCalman returned. Badly in centre halves. Jack was on a short-term deal the end of last year and went away. I think he went on trial at a couple of clubs, maybe Kilburn, I think maybe one of them. For whatever reason, didn't sign there. And we've obviously brought in a new manager. We need centre halves to come in and get signed. And Jack's obviously a capable player at this level. He's got a long throw. He plays the ball well at his feet. And he'll be good for us because we need that depth in defence. Kevin Nichols obviously moved on as well, so that's a gap we need to fill. And
where did Kev Nichol go?
Kev Nichol went to Gartcairn.
Did he?
Yeah,
so
Kev moved on last week. So it's just one of those ones that wasn't really working out. He was getting an opportunity to move to a club that are going to sign him next year. We probably weren't going to sign him, given he came in under the old manager, and we've got a new manager who'll probably want to bring in his own guys. And just was a kind of mutual kind of partner ways, and Kev moves on with our best wishes. And we'll see him in a few weeks.
Another one I missed there.
Follow my socials. Come on, what's going on? Talking to Gartcairn, Gartcairn 2, Trinent Juniors 1.
Good result.
Fantastic result for Gartcairn. Like I say, it sets up a quarter-final draw against ourselves at Buffs Park, but don't know an awful lot about the game, certainly, but Trinent, we know like a good side from what they've done this season in the Lowland League, but Gartcairn obviously right up for it. Mick Dunlop and Charles Egg, he has strengthened the team with some players. I don't think Kev would have been cup tied, so he wouldn't have played, but he brought in Conor Bolger from our team as well. He's a good, tricky winger and can probably hurt anyone, and they've also got the back in there to go out and get players, and done a great job, and they're in the next round.
Yeah, I don't think any of these results are really surprising because I truly believe that anything can happen in the cup, and we've seen it with obviously Darvel beating Aberdeen is probably the prime example.
Yeah.
So Gartcairn are a really decent West of Scotland side, very solid, similar to obviously Drumchapel that we'll probably mention as well. But it's one of those tough one for Trinent to take really, because they have been a bit dicey form wise actually. They're still up there in terms of
they're not out of it. I'm not out of it 100%. But they've got more to do than the other teams. I think.
Yeah. It's maybe a relief in a sense, and if Spartans play another couple of games in the cups or whatever, and Trent a few less games, it could be one of those ones where it's interesting if they're fresher come the end of the season, because we still have a few months to go, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, really good win for Gartcairn there.
Next one, Drumchapel 3, Vale Clyde 1. Firstly, I'd like to say quite a good run for Vale Clyde. Getting to the fifth round of the cup. They've also got probably an alright draw. They maybe would have given me a Drumchapel at with spending well and running well, doing well in the Scottish Cup, for example. They've also got a good squad and a good set of players there that should be able to beat Vale Clyde, and they have done. But Vale Clyde can take a lot of solace from the fact they did get to the fifth round of the cup in the first place.
Yeah, I have noticed that there's probably a wee bit of a decline in Drumchapel's media. I've not seen a lot in the last sort of few months in terms of like matches.
Interesting, you see that, because I was looking for the result on the way home on Saturday and didn't even see a post about the game or anything. So I don't know. I did spot that myself. I did notice that.
There is nothing against the media people at Drumchapel, but I have noticed that the last sort of few weeks, because I've got a few people that I know there. Mark Big Paolo, Martin Green. So I do try and keep up with the results. Although I keep up with the results for a million teams, but disappointing that I didn't really have the proper info there. But I would expect them to beat Vale of Clyde. I think you're right. Vale of Clyde have done really well to get to that stage of the cup. Next
one then, Cumnock Juniors 2, Socket Juniors 3. After extra time, Cumnock were up 2-0, and looks like they've chucked it away. I think a couple of contentious decisions in the game. I think there was a goal not given for Cumnock, but there was probably a penalty that should have been given to Socky that didn't get given. So the balance of play probably even themselves out. But I mean, Cumnock will be disappointed to go out in that fashion, of having that 2-0 lead. And it seems like it's the kind of same old stuff from Cumnock, in the sense that they're making mistakes and they're getting punished when they're making these kind of individual mistakes, and they are struggling. I think with their squad, you can see on Saturday, Brian McGinty and Tony Aitchison were both on the bench for Cumnock and stripped. Potentially playing. Paul Burns was also on the bench coming back from injury, who wasn't fit to play, and I think Mark McLennan was in like a similar boat of being injured and still being on the bench. So they're obviously struggling for depth just now, Cumnock. There's probably a lot of reliance on Jordan Moore to score goals, and he did on Saturday, but when he's maybe not firing in the league, then it takes a lot away from what Cumnock can do and punish teams. So, but fair play to Socky. We know, I mean, I've talked about Socky at length on this podcast and been a cup side, and absolutely did that. 2-0 down, did not think they were out of it in any stretch, and kind of came back, got it to 2 each, and then got the goal in extra time.
Yeah, I do believe the first half was a bit of a disaster, as you mentioned. The ref just apparently didn't have control of it. There was a lot of contentious decisions, as you mentioned. Socky are a weird team. They're doing really well in the East of Scotland Premier, to be fair. We can't really just call them a cup team, but they seem to love the cup. Ross Kavanagh bagging the winner there, and I believe Cumnock kind of just lost it towards the end. I think they were down to 9 men as well. Not great, obviously, but it would have been one for the neutrals, really. Yeah, goals. I don't know, because sometimes you don't really want to see the ref being the main guy first half, but apparently it calmed down the second half, and then into extra time, I think Cumnock Ross Kavanagh scored, and then they've went fired in and about. If they know it's over, let's maybe not trying to say they're injuring people, but let's get the tackles flying or whatever. So out of frustration. So Ross Kavanagh is another guy we've talked up quite a lot. The Socky winning in the semi-finals. You happy with that, Ben? If you get past them?
It's set up, isn't it? It's absolutely set up for co-winning Rangers versus Socky. I can't remember who Socky got in the quarterfinals. I'm just going to check. We'll talk about it at the end.
You done the draw, did you know?
I did. What did you think of the draw? Did you watch it?
I missed that, actually, because I remember you telling me the time, and I totally forgot. And then I saw
supporting your mates, man. What's all that about?
I missed the time.
Shocking. It was an early draw. It was 11 o'clock in the morning.
They have Drumchapel, which is a very tough game, but they are at home, so.
We have Huddersfield and Drumchapel in the west. It's all interlinked. It's funny when you look at the draws of the cups. But there's still 2 more games to talk about in the 5th round, and the next one then is Clydebank 1, University of Stirling 2. University of Stirling doing University of Stirling things, coming up against a side who are no mugs in Clydebank, but just managed to edge it. They got a 2-0 lead, certainly I think it was in the first half, and Adam Hodge got a goal back to give Clydebank a bit of a lifeline, but couldn't quite do it. But Clydebank have been flying in the league, so it's obviously gotten to go out any competition, but they're up against a good uni side that we know well, and it was probably going to be quite an even game.
Yeah, I heard it was quite a tight game. Obviously, Stirling Uni scored in the first 10 minutes, and then they held the lead for so long. So it was always going to be a frustrating one for Clydebank, So, and then they'll go 2-0 up as well, and then Clydebank are really chasing the game in the sort of last half hour. Difficult one, but it's what Stirling Uni do. I mean, we've praised them so much on this podcast. We've praised them so much this season. We've praised Clydebank a bit recently as well. But by all accounts, a tight game. Stirling got the early lead, and I wouldn't say held on, obviously, because they extended their lead. But it's very difficult when you're playing a team that's on such decent form, and you're chasing the game. And I think that's the downfall of Clydebank there. Obviously, just the early lead then they extend it, early into the sort of second half, and Clydebank are chasing the game there. And it doesn't matter how good you are, you don't want to be 2-0 down against a really well-disciplined side. I think that's one thing I've probably not talked about in terms of Stirling Uni. They are very structurally great and disciplined, and it's not something I really praise Chris for. We talk about maybe he's developing players and stuff like that, but he is very tactically astute as a manager, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. It's always about developing players and all this sort of stuff, but he's a good manager in terms of his tactics. And there has been a change, I think, on formation this season, where they kind of playing a bit of a free and then kind of two wide in the back, and it seems to be working wonders this season. And they're not afraid to attack teams. So yeah, bit of praise for Chris there. I know he never tires of it here on this podcast. So, but yeah, full credit. Obviously mentioned Gordon Moffat last week as well. We rate him as well, but it would have been a decent game, I think. For
by all accounts it was. Yeah, I think. And then I watched the highlights. You see Nicky Little going for his typical kind of lob. And it's one of those ones with Nicky Little where you obviously, when he does score those long range efforts, you see them because they're viral, they're popular online and things like that. But he must try that every game. I don't see enough of Clydebank to know that, but I did see a clip from the game where he put one over the bar, and you're like, that's something that can just change a game from their perspective. What a weapon to have up your sleeve is just a guy that will be quite happily be in the middle of the park and decide to try and hit a 35-yard lobbed volley over your keeper, for example. And it's an interesting tactic, but I love it. Despite the fact he scored an absolute screaming against us early in the season, we'll gloss over that one and move on to the last game in the competition. It was Auchinleck Talbot 1, East Kilbride 0. Now, a great result for Auchinleck Talbot against obviously a side like East Kilbride. Will we move straight on to the controversy surrounding the result? Chris, this is fresh for you, so I'm going to...
Yeah, I never knew anything about this.
Paint the picture. So you'll have heard that Andy Leishman, the goalkeeper of Auchinleck Talbot, is injured and potentially out for potentially the remainder of the season. I don't know enough about his injury, but I know he's out for a while. And they've signed Mark Fisher from Troon on loan.
Oh, you're kidding. Has he played in an earlier round?
Gets better. No, wait. No, let me finish. So Mark Fisher comes in, plays last week. By all accounts, has an absolute screamer of a game. Looks like he's the goalie of choice. However, Mark Fisher is cup tied, so can't play against East Kilbride. So Auchinleck go out and get an emergency loan and sign Josh Bradley Hurst from Clyde. Josh Bradley Hurst was on loan at Clydebank. And featured against Pollock in the second round, I think it was, for Clydebank. And played the match, kept a clean sheet, Auchinleck through the next round. So on the face of it, sounds like they've played a goalie that was cup tied in a competition and won. I've seen a lot of rumour and conjecture online about this, and suggestions were that I don't know who's responsible and things like that for knowing. Personally, I think it's probably sits with Auchinleck and they're probably their secretary or whoever's doing the registrations of players for me. But I think at the moment there hasn't been a ruling made. Auchinleck were in the draw certainly on Sunday for the next round, but I think there's still to be more to come on that story.
If he's played in a previous round, they will be kicked out. I've seen it happen. When I've been involved in clubs at Kelty, I think it happened. Chris Dodd had played for Genefield and he played for Kelty. I can't remember if it was a South Challenge Cup or one of the other cups, but so I did put a really, bad taste, I guess, because I think if I remember Kelty were playing Camelin, I think they beat Camelin and then it discovered that Chris Dodd had played for Greenfield in a previous round. I can't remember if it was the South Challenge or the East of Scotland qualifying cup or whatever it was. But yeah, so if he's played, and obviously I knew about Josh being there because I moved him on FM, and I think he was there from sort of September to early January, possibly just before that. So if he's played in the cup, the Auchinleck will not be retaining their cup if that's what's happened. I mean, it's first I've been hearing about it. Yeah, so
it's an interesting one. There's been a few different things. I think he went on loan also to East Stirlingshire as well. Was that right? At some point, maybe on a short term, maybe emergency loan. I'm not too sure, but there was a suggestion that he went to East Stirlingshire, and they checked he hadn't played for East Stirlingshire. There was no mention of the Clydebank loan. Although he was at Clydebank for a number of months certainly, and played and came in and did pretty well at Clydebank from all accounts, and then just got recalled. I think Clydebank were intended to have him for the rest of the season, and then he got recalled. I think one of their goalies got injured, and then Clyde had to recall him. So
he didn't play a lot actually. In terms of the league, I think it was only 4 appearances. I think it was late September, so say start of October. So he was there for about a few months. But as you say, I think he did get recalled very early. But again, if he's played in the cup, the Auchinleck will get kicked out.
There's no doubt about it. He's played in the competition, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, there'll be more to it, and knowing from our own experiences, for example, with Kev Nichol, mentioned him already today, but we had that kind of situation with him earlier this season being suspended, but it's a different scenario. But obviously, there's more to the story than just kind of what's in the face of it. But the facts are that Bradley Hurst did play in a previous round and was cup tied, and he was signed by Auchinleck to play. So I think that will come out in the wash. I'd imagine the West of Scotland or the South Challenge Cup.
I could probably tell you, not at this moment, but I could definitely probably look back and keep it the keeper of stats and whatnot. But I tell you what, if it has been a mistake by I think that you often falls into the club secretary role. You've got to feel bad for the club secretary because it's so easy to miss. It's so easy to miss these.
It's one of those ones. It's like, again, it comes back to, I think, things like how do you actually check I don't know if you can check where a player's played in what competitions you can play it. They've played in, for example. I don't think that maybe that's as clear as anything, but I know. But it's one of those ones that I know from experience. Like, I'm not saying married to a club secretary, so I know exactly what goes on, behind the scenes and in their head, and what they're making sure they do everything above board. So it's a thankless task, and it's a hard job. If they made a genuine mistake, then it's what it is. It's unfortunate. It's just probably got more light on it because it is Auchinleck, and they've also got a big following, and for whatever reason, people do want to see them not succeed. So unfortunate one for them, if that is the case. But they are, as it stands, they did get the win, and Ballycount put in a good performance against
East
Kilbride. Talking about East Kilbride, just briefly, where did East Kilbride go from here? I don't know. I think I mentioned it earlier on, but I feel like they've got to maybe rip it up and start again almost with that squad. The squad, I feel like the players that they've got, they always seem to have this same, no matter who's in charge, it seems to get this same kind of malaise. And they've also made some improvements to the team, but you listen to Kev Rutkowitz speak after matches, and he's kind of saying the same stuff every week, and it's like, it's one of those ones that don't want to wish anyone to get the sack. But what do they do next? I just don't know where East Kilbride go.
I better watch what I'm saying, because there was about a 15-minute segment last podcast that we were talking about, criticising players and people or whatever, all to do with football, and East Kilbride were a big part of that. I think a lot of people kind of fell at us over, or me probably more than yourself, Ben. But it's tough. It really is tough. One credit I will give to East Kilbride this season is there are a lot of youth players brought in.
They've had to ultimately, haven't they?
There's a pathway there, which is good. I mean, the same pathway exists in a few clubs, obviously, like Spartans, for example. But I mean, I really, that's down to Martin Fellows as well. So I mean, they're doing really great with that. But when you're bringing in guys like Alan Lithgow and Ronan Hughes, top quality players that should really be bossing this league, and they're not really. There's been a few times where where there's players that that have came down to the level and they've been amazing, like Nicky Lowe, for example, Nathan Austin. But then there's other guys that you think are probably on that level that just don't whatever work out. I've always stated that I've always been quite disappointed in Bobby Barr when he came to East Stirlingshire. I thought Jamie Dishington was, played a lot better than Bobby Barr did. And Bobby Barr had the experience of playing higher up, and I've stated it many times. And I was quite disappointed. And Bobby Barr's a decent footballer, but for whatever reason, he just never. He was never a standout at East Stirlingshire, and Jamie Dishington he's always a standout, You've got to give him credit there, always say that he scores tap-ins or whatever, but yes, he's a good player. And then there's other guys, like I think Craig Reid, that when he went to Kelty, was brilliant for his start, East Kilbride, but then he went to Kelty and he was kind of sort of more of a sort of bit part player, kind of playing right back when centre back. It was kind of odd. So I don't know if it's an age thing, just experience, or they're maybe not used to the level of how different it is, because teams attack you at this level, and it's not just long ball, dealing with long balls and headers. Always cheer the Harry Maguire. I know we're talking English Premier League, but Harry Maguire is awful in a 2-man setup, but he's amazing in a 3-man setup. It's maybe stuff like that.
I don't know about amazing.
He was good for Leicester. He was good for Leicester. He was probably worth whatever.
Not the time, Chris. Bad timing. 7-0 off Liverpool. Bad timing.
Yeah, I know, but I found a bit of that.
We move on.
But what I mean is, I expect a lot more from the players at East Kilbride, and I'm not talking about guys like Neil McLaughlin, who I know does well, but the guys that they've brought in, Kyle Connell. As I say, we kind of mentioned it last week, where he came in, scored a few goals, and then he's not scoring anymore. In fairness, I don't know if he's getting the service or what it is, but I don't know. You could say you've probably seen it with Broomhill as well. I don't want to throw them into it, but maybe that's what frustrates Si. I think it does what frustrates Si, because these players are so much better than what they're playing like. Yeah, so I don't know.
It comes down to it, isn't it? There's a reason why they're at that level, and there's something that we don't know about, whether that's off the field or their application or their attitude, things like that you maybe don't see. You obviously see a lot of that on the ball, or the money, as Chris is referring to, potentially. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously
just be realistic.
That's a massive part of this level, but the money comes. Maybe that's the problem, in the attitude and things like that. Maybe the application are not quite there, because that is there could be a load of things, I mean, it could be a load of things that could.
I hate to skip ahead, obviously, but I never gave him a lot of praise last week. But Will Sale, you look at a guy like Will Sale, he has a heart to go and play for Largs, and because that's his hometown club, there's probably not a lot of guys at non-league level that have that same commitment to a football team, and wanting to play for them. And I doubt he's on mega bucks at Largs, in all fairness.
I assume not,
Yeah. So I think you need more of that from the guys. You need that feeling. I mean, you see it at Stirling Uni, you see it at Spartans. They really create that atmosphere of. I think East Kilbride are missing a wee bit of identity sometimes.
Anyway, then we'll look at the quarter-final draw quickly in the South Challenge Cup. It's Caley Braves versus Auchinleck Talbot, Cowan Rangers versus Gap Cairn, Socky Juniors versus Drumchapel United, and the Spartans versus University of Stirling. The semi-final draw was also made. That's Cowan Rangers or Gap Cairn versus Socky or Drumchapel, and Caley Braves or Auchinleck versus Spartans or Stirling Uni. Interesting tie, as we mentioned, it could potentially be set up for that Cowan Rangers versus Socky match that we've all been waiting for. We'll call it the official catch-up derby. If it gets there, obviously we've got a tough ass to beat. Gap Cairn, you mentioned the other outside, we know they're very much capable. Drumchapel, likewise, on the other side of that draw. The Spartans versus University of Stirling, an all-Lowland League tie at the top. It could be anything. And I think Caley Braves, Auchinleck, or East Kilbride, depending obviously what happens there. It'll be an interesting one. I think Auchinleck will have enough to beat Caley Braves if they do get through. I think if East Kilbride are the team, then it might be a bit more even. I think I'm not too sure about that one, but all interesting to look forward to. Ties we played on the weekend of the 1st of April, so we'll look out for that one. So there wasn't any games in the East Scotland Premier League division. It was one of the cup competitions on, but I'm struggling to find results. But one bad news coming out of East Scotland is Pennycook manager has resigned, Chris.
Yeah, Stevie McLeish, well respected, well knowledgeable, got Pennycook to second in the league last year. I think they were outdone by Trinent on goal difference. So, yeah, disappointing because I thought Stevie was a really good, experienced manager. One thing that I thought was brand new from Andy Forbes, who we've talked about a fair bit, but there was an article basically released and saying the players, felt responsible for Stevie leaving, and I think that's so rare nowadays. It's always, the manager's fault and whatever else. The players don't want to play for him and all this sort of nonsense. And I think the results, to be fair, the results haven't been good enough. And you've seen Pennycook slide from kind of near the top table challenging down to sort of mid-table. And it's disappointing, but I do respect the Pennycook boys for really coming out and saying that, because I think it's rarer and rarer in football that players actually take responsibility. They're happy to blame the managers or whoever else. And I'm not sure. Yes, we missed that, last week. So it was just worth a mention. Disappointing because Pennycook are always a decent side and they've got decent players, and they have lost a fair good sort of good players, and that's maybe contributed to that. But respect to the Pennycook players for coming out and saying that.
Moving on into the West Scotland Premier Division, the results were as follows: Athley 1, Largs Thistle 2, Darvel 3, Cambuslang Rangers 1, Glenafton Athletic 1, B Juniors 2, Arran Meadow 0, Petershill 1, Pollock 6, Kirkintar Robroy 2, and Troon 3, Hurlford 1. Not a great deal to talk about. Darvel and B were both 1-0 down before they managed to turn around and get results there. B sticking at the top. I think it's an interesting one. They've got Auchinleck on Wednesday night, which will be a interesting tie down at Beechwood, which I think will be a major game, and where that title's going to go. I think for me though, I think Darvel still have enough in them, but they've got that squad depth. I think the one thing about Darvel that alarms me a little bit is the likes of David Simon, Lewis Morrison going out on loan. Those guys are guys that we've talked about the squad depth at Darvel for a while, and I think you saw on Saturday, I think they only managed 6 subs on Saturday, which was including a goalkeeper, which is quite rare for Darvel. They've also got kind of a few injuries piling up. The likes of Craig Trousdale, who I think is an important part of their midfield, for example. And it surprises me at this point in the season that allowing guys like David Simon, Lewis Morrison to go on loan. I don't know if there's maybe a bit of cleverness from Mick there, in the sense of that if you put in a good player in a team like Troon, they'll maybe take points off the likes of B, Auchinleck, for example, say for Lewis Morrison, very capable player. He should be able to improve. Hopefully, he knows the team well. He's played under Darren Henderson previously. He was there before he moved to Darvel, so it may be a nice environment for him to go and play and get game time and do a job and beat some of those teams that basically Darvel want to see drop points. But for me, I don't think Darvel are out of it at all. I think there's that depth of squad will come good. They've obviously had a blip, but they've got it back on track on Saturday. They're playing Cambuslang, who they should be beating. Let's be honest, they should be beating every team in this division. There's no doubt about that. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think it's obviously still to play that Beath again as well. But all to play for in the top of the Prem.
I see it a wee bit differently, actually. I could see Lewis Morrison moving back to Hurlford, and I can see David Simon moving back to Troon at the end of the season. So I don't know if that is the case. Obviously, they know the area and stuff. It would be genius for Mick to do that.
Well, it's only a month. It's only a 1 month loan at this point in time, so it's meant to be go and get game times, and I assume go and get game time, come back, and be ready. Match sharp to play for the running, because that's where they're going to be playing till probably the playoffs are in about
May,
15th or something like that. They're going to have to play probably back to that Monday, Wednesday, Saturday approach at some point, because they've still got plenty of league games to play. They're out the cup competition certainly, so that probably will be in Darvel's favour certainly.
Yeah.
Auchinleck have still got cup competitions to play in. B, they're out the cup competitions as well. So it'll be an interesting run in, certainly at the top end. At the bottom end, I mean, I know too well about the bottom end of the Premier League just now. We're still sitting second bottom, I think it is at the moment. But we've only played 15 league games. We've only played half our league games yet. Do you know what I mean? We've just played half our league games, rather. We've got 9 games in hand over Petershill, who've got 5 points ahead. It's going to be. I mean, I don't know who's out of it. I don't. Maybe look at Rob Roy come. Maybe is the kind of the point where maybe you're safe. But I mean, all it takes one of those teams to keep going down the way which they are now, and they can be pulled right in. But obviously, selfishly, I'm looking at this from a winning perspective. We just need to get the wins on the table and just go and get results and do our best to try and steady the ship, which I think bringing in Chris Aitken has made a massive improvement to our team, and you can see the players are playing better for it. And yeah, it'll be interesting. But it's one of those ones I think we'll need to work out, get it done quickly and see where we go. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the run in for everyone concerned, and both ends of the table.
Yeah, and one massive shock for me, maybe not a shock in terms of the result. Obviously, Largs beat Arthurlie, and Johnny Miller resigned as manager, and he basically said he didn't have the drive and he wasn't the man to take Arthurlie forward, which surprised me. But you can't fault his honesty. But that leaves it a wee bit worrying for Arthurlie unless they can get someone in with good caliber. Obviously, Largs another fantastic win. Don't want to be too biased. Also, getting in the score sheet again. So, as you would expect,
was that his first goal? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he never scored the winner, but yeah.
His goals, eh?
I think the only other thing to talk about, really, not so much towards the bottom, I guess, but Troon are fantastically well recent. Since we called them out, this was a few months ago or whatever, we called them out for not really kind of I guess, the meh category, and then we won the last 4 out of 5 or whatever, and Dale Burgess is having a brilliant time in between the sticks, eh? So
that's mad spooky. You've just mentioned Troon, because I have literally received a text from Richard Henderson at Troon in the last minute and a half maybe, and then you brought them up, and that wasn't planned. So that's interesting. They're
doing well. I don't know if we always joke about Sam Jamieson. We can be a bit light-hearted about it. I don't know if he's in amongst the goals, to be fair, but
Troon have picked 3 for the season, perhaps. I think that's what the last record I've seen in the league. So less said about that, the better. We won't dwell on that one. But I think final talking point in the West, or not so much the West, is that where are we at with licensing, Chris? I haven't seen you back and forth on Twitter today about that. As it stands, Lithgow Rose, obviously, they're going to get promoted. Are going to win, the East of Scotland Prem without some sort of train crash of form. Full Darvo and Auchinleck, we know they've got the licence in the West of Scotland Prem. What about Beath? What's their situation?
Yeah, you mentioned that. We kind of touched on it last week. Obviously, Beath don't have, they're not licensed at the moment. I don't know if there is a process of them becoming licensed, especially, we're in March already, so we did see a few years ago, obviously with Bonnyrigg, where it was kind of like fast tracked for them to get their license to come into the Lowland League. Whether we would see something similar with Beeve or in fairness Creetown, because they're not licensed either. So 2 of the 3 teams in the sort of top, the sort of tier 5 are not licensed. And Lithgow, yeah, they are licensed, obviously, but I'm not sure how it would work. I don't know if there'd be some sort of fast track. Would they even be allowed to play the playoff?
I'd assume not. I think the playoff would be.
Would you just promote the Lithgow?
Yeah, precursor to. And obviously, I think you've got to have your indication you're going to go for the license. I don't know where Beath are at with that at all. So I'm not close enough to Beath anymore to know what's going on there. So it'll be an interesting one, certainly, if they do win the league. But we'll be here watching it from afar, shall we say, for the foreseeable, and keep you all up to date with what's going on. So, final thing to cover off on the official Catchup podcast is that Abbey Vale won what's called the Alba Cup in the South Scotland League, which is the kind of the cup competition that gives teams the opportunity to play in the SFA Shield, I think it's called. Yep. And the Cup Winners' Shield, I think it's called. And the one that Drumchapel won last season. Renfrew won the Strathclyde Demolition Cup that gets them that step into that. Cloncarty already have won the East of Scotland Cup at the start of the season, so it'll be a three-way playoff between Cloncarty, Renfrew and Abbey Vale for that place in the Scottish Cup. So a great opportunity for all three teams to potentially go and get a run at the Scottish Cup, as would be obviously going to the preliminary round, but a great chance to go in there and maybe get some prize money and help the club out and maybe go on a nice wee cup run.
I would know how to choose between them three. Actually, they're actually all
must be pretty close. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I've only seen Renfrew based on the fact I was at the Strathclyde Demolition Cup final, and they looked decent enough sides and decent. That's pretty much it then from us on the official Catch-Up podcast. Finally, before we go, Chris, were you happy with the boxing result? Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul?
I didn't even watch it. I did see a lot of people wasted their money, as it was said. A lot of people said. To be honest, I mentioned that I rate Jake Paul as a boxer as such, but I wouldn't say I'm like a massive supporter of his. Or was there a wee bit of controversy that he went to a split decision or something like that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a bit of. It felt a wee bit rigged, and I mean the first judge gave it, I think 76, 73 Jake Paul, and then it went Tommy Fury. But I think everyone was in no doubt that Tommy Fury won, despite the fact that Tommy Fury got knocked down allegedly the seventh round.
Was that a slip or something?
Felt like a slip, yeah. I mean, I think so. But I think these things are a bit of a sham. I think I seen one that happened on Saturday that was between some girl from Love Island and some OnlyFans star that was happening. It just looked like an absolute cat fight, and it was just like, what the fuck is this, man? Why are people promoting this? People obviously pay the money, like you said, wasting money on these competitions, and maybe that's the way boxing's going, that these kind of sham celebrity type white collar boxing matches are the way to go. And I did see Cal Froch in the BT Sport, the BT Sport studios, kind of almost talking about how crap Jake Paul was, and if he's maybe trying to angle for a wee fight, because he also sees that Jake Paul is the money fight. But yeah, we're not a boxing podcast, remember, but we just like to have a bit of a light-hearted poke fun at the world of boxing now and again.
One thing in terms of boxing, I watched boxing my entire life almost as much as football or whatever, and I've probably not seen as many corrupt decisions in football than I've seen in boxing. It is such a sport that could be, when money's involved, it's like, oh, we'll have a rematch, we'll have another rematch until people get sick of it, basically. So yeah, I'll let you win this one, you can win the next one, blah blah blah. So it always seems to happen that way in boxing, doesn't it? So, but if you're making 100 million or whatever over one fight, I mean, you would do that, wouldn't you? I don't know if it was 100 million. I'm guessing it was.
It's probably good. It's probably good though, yeah. But that's all I've got time for on the official Catch-Up podcast for another week. Check us out on all the podcast platforms. Remember to hit the like, subscribe button. Please do that. It does help us. We don't do this for any sort of money. We want to grow the brand and things like that. So it does. It's not hard to go and do. Hit a quick like on the YouTube or on your whatever podcast app you use, and that'll be kind. I think I do that for anyone. If you ever hear that, I'm always doing it. I've got loads of YouTube accounts. I say loads of YouTube accounts. I've got a few YouTube accounts that I use for various different things, and you all get a like. So please do it back if you do listen to this and get to the end. I'm conscious we're about an hour and 15 minutes into this podcast. So thanks all for watching, listening, whatever you do. Have a good one, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.